Hey guys, Coach Pete with AcademyRecruits.com. Second to last day of the July recruiting period. Hope you guys are playing hard and playing well. I wanted to bring to your attention today a bit of a disclaimer. Sometimes I get questions from recruits that seem to indicate that they take these recruiting advice video blogs as the gospel truth. And in fact, they should be taken as a rule of thumb. For example, I've talked repeatedly on here about how the official visit, the order of the official visit, is how you really know you're being recruited, much more so than the scholarship offer. Schools are going to bring their priority kids up in order. Number one, first week in September. Number two, second week September. That's the way it works. Generally, I worked at a school that preferred to do official visits on home football weekends. We felt like that made for a better environment and gave us a better chance to make a good impression on the kids we liked the best. So there were times that our first official visit of the year would be September 21st. Well, if a kid had watched these video advice blogs and this particular school where I worked was saying, hey, we want you to come up September 21st because that's the first football weekend, that kid might think that was a lie. Because in fact the football weekend is one of the many excuses I've mentioned for where college coaches who do try to make the fifth place kid think he's number one with October 15th alumni weekend, that's when we want you to come up, so on and so forth, when most of the time, as a rule of thumb, but not as the gospel truth, when college coaches are telling you mid-September, late September, October is when you can visit, no matter what they're telling you, most of the time, in fact, what they're really saying is you're not our top priority. But again, keep in mind, we're talking in generalities. We're talking, it's a general rule of thumb. There are legitimate reasons sometimes why official visits get moved around and why coaches prefer that kids visit on a certain weekend rather than the first possible weekend. So a good way to clear that up is just ask the coach if it's your choice. Coach, can I come any weekend I choose? And if they say yes, that's a pretty good sign also that you might be their top kid. I think another good example of where you have a rule of thumb that shouldn't be taken as a 100% thing. Typically, you would think that if a college coach can't call you till June 15th after your sophomore year, you would think if they really like you, they would call you June 15th on the nose. And then they would call you July 15th on the nose. And then they would call you August 15th, so on and so forth. You may also think that once they can call twice a week, that schools that really want you would make sure they called twice a week, every single week. And the reality is that even though that's true as a rule of thumb, and when those things are happening, it means the recruiting interest is legit. Just because it's not happening doesn't mean the interest isn't legit. There are a lot of college coaches that get busy scouting reports. They got a lot on their plate. Some college coaches aren't the hardest working or most responsible people on the face of the earth, so they might not be able to keep up with the number of calls that they're allowed to make and that kind of thing. So even though if schools are making all those calls exactly when they're supposed to, it's a great indicator of how much of a priority you are. Just because they're not doesn't mean that you're not a priority. So again, we're talking about rules of thumb versus the gospel truth. So please, moving forward, take everything I say in each video with a grain of salt, because again, we're talking about rules of thumb. There are different cases and different scenarios depending on each kid and each coach and the strength of the relationship you have with that particular coaching staff. So there's always a lot of wiggle room or a lot of lack of clarity depending on each particular circumstance, each particular situation. So wanted to get that out there, and I appreciate y'all's time. It's Coach Pete at AcademyRecruits.com if you have any questions, and thanks very much for your time.